Hari Om.
Hari Om, everyone. Hari Om, sir. Hari Om.
Hari Om Utsav ji.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari
Hari Om.
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Okay.
मैं घ्यो दी पट्टी नहीं बनी दूंगा अगे।
प्रातः स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वं सच्चित्सुखं परमहं सगतिं तुरीयं यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्मनिष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते बोधोऽन्यसाधनेभ्यो हि साक्षान्मोक्षैकसाधनम् पाकस्य वह्निवज्ञानं विना मोक्षो न सिद्ध्यति। Verse number 28 to 32, once each. तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्मविभागयोः गुणागुणेषु वर्तन्त इति मत्वा न सज्जते। प्रकृतेर्गुणसम्मूढाः सज्जन्ते गुणकर्मसु तान् कृत्स्नविदो मन्दान् कृत्स्नविन्न विचालयेत्। मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि सन्न्यस्याध्यात्मचेतसा निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगतज्वरः। ये मे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तोऽन्यसूयन्तः मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः। ये त्वेतदभ्यसूयन्तः नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान चेतसः। Okay, are there any questions? Hanji, Rachin. Oh, okay.
In the last class, in the previous verse, we were making a distinction between Purush and Prakriti. So, this awareness of this distinction and the consequent detachment, is this supposed to be a cause or an effect of moving on to the path of selfless action or right action? Like, can this be the cause or is it primarily the effect?
shifting the focus from the Purusha, from the Prakriti to
No,
the...
awareness of this distinction between the Purusha and Prakriti.
Okay. The question is it the cause or
The effect,
of?
moving on to the path of right action
Hmm.
or selfless action.
Okay.
Because
Both.
both.
Both. What is selfless action? Selfless action is small s. Selfless means there's no small s self, there's no ego. There's no emphasis, attention, obsession on the Prakriti. What is ego? Ego is nothing but a an arrogation, an emphasis, an undue importance on matter. When you mistaken what is yours as you, that is ego. The body is yours, the body is not you. When you mistaken it that, oh, I am this body, it is that emphasis on the body. That is egoism. That emphasis on the mind is egoism. So selfless means the absence of that. The absence of that undue importance, undue focus, a black market value. But your awareness cannot be in a vacuum, right? Your awareness is either on the small s self, Prakriti, or it's on the big s self, Purusha. So selfless itself implies a shift in awareness. So in the true sense, one's capacity to distinguish and one's capacity to shift the focus comes with spiritual evolution, and spiritual evolution comes through right action. But yes, the inspiration and the clarity of right action comes through you and me discussing about this subject, comes through a basic intellectual awareness, at least, of the distinction between Prakriti and Purusha. Now, just because you are intellectually aware about it doesn't necessarily mean that you have gained that shift in awareness. It doesn't mean you have actually achieved that shift in awareness. Right? You have become educated about it, and now you will keep it in the back of your mind as you move on with actions in your life. It is something that you will stand to bring to your attention as you engage in the world. It's something that is a path of self-correction, right? So you will achieve that self-correction as you grow. But yes, no doubt, a fundamental awareness of it is important for you to practice what is right action. And spiritual practice happens a lot in negation. When I mean in negation, it's having understood what is selfless, try not to be selfish. Right? That's what I mean by negation. Your natural tendency will be to be selfish, resist it. Your natural tendency will be to be unselfish, further purify it. Right? So it's spiritual practice actually happens in negation, right? And the end result of that is that awareness which we are talking about. That end result is that this awareness becomes second nature. This awareness becomes like a given. But that doesn't happen on day one. Right now, you and I have become educated about it. Right? But to actually attain that awareness, will only come with sadhana. Does that answer your question?
Answers my question. So, this constant deliberation on, whether your activity is selfish or then like sort of negating it and like moving on to more selfless action. So, in the beginning, I guess, it requires a lot of deliberation from your end. It can't just be a simple like matter of, okay, having like sort of blind faith in it or something and then hoping you like, take the sort of right action or something.
See, a lot of it is like swimming, you know. We can talk about and about the technique of freestyle and moving. Now, Omji will know so much about this. Yeah, it's like you and me are sitting outside the swimming pool and talking. Wow, so much technique is required. But there's so much deliberation required. Uh, and then we'll start talking about Michael Phelps and we'll start talking about this person and that person. Until you actually just jump in. Someone just has to push you in. Sure, you'll not be perfect in the first attempt. And that's what I mean by negation, right? It's a self-correction. Sometimes when you flap your, early swimmers, they flap their hands like this. Hmm? Some people, one of my friends has just started swimming. They forget to move the hands, they only move their legs. It's really funny. Uh, um, So it's not that you perfect swimming in one day, but you get a taste of it. So it's not that you have to overthink and over deliberate and over analyze. The idea is not that. All of this information is just to familiarize you, right? Um, so that you literally have to glide into it, just like you jump into a pool, right? And don't worry, no one's expecting you to be perfectly spiritual, or it's a path of gradual self-correction. All of this information is only for you to keep at the back of your mind as you function. You already know half of it, and 80% of whatever I'm speaking, people already know. It's not new information, right? It's just that through us reiterating it, we get a conviction about it. Oh, must be something correct about it. Yeah. Yes,
Thank you.
Balaji.
Hari Om. So when you're talking about taking the path of negation, which is saying that I'm not the body, I'm not the intellect. So again, we are using a thought to cross over the instruments or the perceptions about the instruments. So is it using the mind to cross over the mind? Is it a way of using the mind to cross over the mind when I take thought as a mind?
Yeah, no, of course. So it is you're using your equipments to rise over your equipments, right? And that will only happen when you are a master of your equipments and not a slave of them. So this is all you have. All you have is your body, mind, intellect. All you have are these instruments. But the beauty of these material equipments is that they can help you um, catapult into this level of spiritual awareness. So if you use it intelligently, if you make good use of it, if you use our buddhi, it's almost a self-negating tool. Of course, it can only take you to a certain point. All of these material equipments can only take you to a place of quietude, a place of silence, a place of meditativeness. So we've often talked about it, that as you evolve in your sadhana, it grows from bhoga to yoga to uparati to dharana to dhyana to that state of meditation, dhyanam. And in dhyanam is when you let go of the mind itself, you let go of the buddhi itself. It's that final stage where it's you attain that complete void. But up until that state, you have to use your material equipments to negate the material equipments. So you're picking up onto the higher and you're letting go of the lower. That's the process.
Thank you.
Okay. Guys, I didn't come prepared for class. I thought there'll be questions. Huh? I don't know what to say now. Verse number 28. तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्मविभागयोः गुणागुणेषु वर्तन्ते इति मत्वा न सज्जते तत्त्ववित्तु महाबाहो गुणकर्मविभागयोः गुणागुणेषु वर्तन्ते इति मत्वा न सज्जते. Very famous phrase, guna guneshu vartanta iti matva na sajjate. But he, O Mahabaho, with true insight into the distinction of gunas and the actions, knowing that gunas abide in gunas, such a person is not attached. So in the previous verse, he introduced this concept of gunas in the discourse. Of course, we are all familiar with gunas. Are we familiar with gunas, everyone? You've heard this term, guna? So for those of us who are not entirely familiar, guna means quality. We use it in Hindi discourse also, and generally in nowadays in when we use the word gun, we mean it in a positive sense. इसके क्या गुण हैं इसमें, तो you know. But actually, guna means quality. Good, bad, ugly, wonderful. Quality is quality. So when we use it in this context of the Bhagavad Gita, when we use it in the Sanskrit context, guna simply means quality.
But in chemistry, we say properties.
Properties, correct. So guna is of three types. Broadly speaking, in the discourse, gunas are of three types: sattva, rajas, tamas. And you're all familiar with this term, sattva, rajas, tamas. But just for the sake of clarification, tamo guna. Tamas is the guna of darkness, ignorance, sleep. It manifests as laziness, lethargy, indifference, a sense of blindness, arrogance, inertia, unwillingness to listen. This is how tamas, the guna of tamas, manifests. This is the multifold manifestations of tamas. A slightly tamasic person may have one or few of these manifestations in a small intensity. Someone might be distracted. Someone might be careless. Little bit. That's little bit of tamas. Someone might be absolutely indignant and uncaring and completely indifferent. That's a lot. That's intense amount of tamas, right? Similarly, the guna of rajas. Rajas is the quality of excitement, energy, desire-riddenness, passion. It manifests as a hurry and a worry. It manifests as a self-consciousness. It manifests as a strong sense of egoism. The state of thoughts in frenzy, excitement, passion, desire-riddenness, a craving for the result, it's like a chicken without a head, easily excitable, easily dejectable. Most of us are very familiar with rajas. We are also familiar with tamas, but we don't want to admit it. Tamas is too bad. Rajas is acceptable. The world celebrates rajas in many ways. The world celebrates rajas. No doubt, it is far, far better than tamas. But rajas is that quality, is that guna which predominantly manifests as selfish action. Tamas is no action. Tamas is indifference. Tamas is expecting others to act, sitting on a high horse. Rajas manifests as selfish action. So again, the extent to which you are rajasic, you may have these qualities in some intensity. Too much rajas is uncontrollably passionate, uncontrollably attached, uncontrollably affected, uncontrollably emotional. That's too much rajas. Little bit of rajas is small sense of doership, a small sense of a streak of emotion. It's a little bit of rajas. Beyond tamas, beyond rajas is sattva, the quality, the guna of sattva. Sattva is the quality of equanimity, maturity, light, knowledge, awareness. Sattva is that quality of clarity, maturity, objectivity, poise, balance, steadiness. Neither are you in when you overcome the indifference of rajas and the immaturity of if when you overcome the indifference of tamas and the immaturity of rajas, you grow into that sattvic state. So it's a guna which results out of growth. It's a guna which results out of. So anybody who's sattvic, it didn't come easily, huh? It didn't come automatically. It's a very mature soul. Sattva is a mature soul. It's a result of a lot of trial and error. Tamas is a adolescent. Rajas is a youth. Still not learned the deeper lessons of life. Learned how to get around, but not learned the deeper lessons of life. Sattva is a mature soul. So, that state of objectivity, sattvic, guna. So, everyone is a combination of all three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, in different proportions. What makes you, you, what makes me, me, what makes everyone distinct and different is a combination of sattva, rajas, tamas. You may have 20% tamas, 60% rajas, and 20% sattva. Means you're predominantly rajasic with some flavor of tamas and some flavor of sattva, but predominantly rajasic. So everybody is a combination of all of these three with a predominance of one. That's generally the case, any personality. When your predominance is tamas with less rajas and less sattva, then your nature is one of ignorance, inertia, laziness, lethargy, an incapacity to act, an unwillingness to function properly. Such a person who is tamasic requires to be monitored, requires to be told what to do, requires to be given, to a point of threat. जैसे ना डंडा मार के काम कराना पड़ेगा. So that's tamas. जिसको डंडा मार के काम कराना पड़ता है, जो तामसिक है उसको डंडा मार के काम कराना पड़ता है. So you have to analyze, you have to observe. First of all, is there tamas in you? Self-analysis. And a very practical tip, tomorrow when you're managing people, when you're functioning around people, when you have a relationship with people, you have to identify the tamas in them, and it has to be dealt with appropriately. You can't go too easy on tamas. If you think someone will change themselves, that doesn't mean you force them to change. That's also equally silly. If you try to force someone to change, it won't happen. It'll be very frustrating for you. But you have to deal with it intelligently. You have to understand that a tamasic person will function in a certain way. So you have to have those. You have to figure out those modalities of dealing with them. How to function with tamas. Ultimately, काम निकालना है ना आपको. If you're functioning in an organization and your subordinate is relatively tamasic, आप अपना काम कैसे निकालोगे? You have to be intelligent about it. You can't try to inspire a tamasic person beyond a point. क्या lecture दे रहा है? हाँ? Suppose you go to a tamasic person and talk about organization values. Suppose you talk about positive culture. Again, he's lecturing me. Tamasic person is not interested in knowledge. Tamasic person feels they know. I'm already right. All this. The irony is that the less someone knows, the more they think they know. That's tamas. Tamas. Terrible ego. Terrible ego. Then, so in the Varanashram, in the ashramas of Varanashram. So, based on your gunas, you fall into a Varana. Very controversial topic, but I'm giving you the logic behind it. Okay, you want to change the name, change it. In fact, in our culture, it'll be better if we just erase it. I keep saying it. You should just erase it. People have made a mess of it. Erase it. Give it a different name. But by giving it a different name, it won't change the concept. The concept is this: if you're tamasic by nature, you will function in a certain way. One who is predominantly tamasic falls into the category of a Shudra by temperament. You don't want to call it a Shudra, don't call it a Shudra. You want to call it something else. And in management culture, I'm sure they give it many names. I don't know. I'm not an expert on these subjects, and I don't know the curious terms they use for such a person. The idea is not to judge another person. The idea is not to pass a judgment on them and think it. Gunas are evolving. People are capable of change, no doubt about it. If people were not capable of change, if people were not capable of growth, then there'd be no point in talking about all of this. But it's very important to assess another person for what they are right now. And of course, assess their capacity for change also. It's also true that the more tamasic you are, the less capable you are of changing. That's the paradox. The more you're steeped in tamas, the more difficult it is to come out of it. It's like you're stuck in not exactly quicksand, but it's like kichad, kada. It's like sticky. It's messy. It's hard to. It's like in Calcutta during the monsoon season. It's coming right now. If you're walking in the Maidan, you walk for maybe 100 meters, mud will stick to your shoes, to a point where your shoes will also come off. I still remember in the ashram we used to grow rice in the clay soil. So when we were growing rice and when we were in those fields which were completely inundated by water, we had to go barefoot. Why? Because it's impossible to wear shoes. You wear shoes, within 10 steps, the ground is so sticky that it will completely take away your shoes. Even when you go without shoes, taking a step also is so difficult because the weight of the soil, the sticky soil, it pulls you down. So it's very difficult to take another step. A tamasic person finds it very difficult to change. It's like that sticky soil, strong gravity. So in that sense, you have to also have sympathy for the tamasic. Even if they try to change, it's very difficult. Then there is rajas. Then people are predominantly rajasic. If you are predominantly rajasic with a certain amount of tamas and less sattva, you fall into the category of a vaishya. So this is a spectrum. Think of it as a spectrum, okay? Think of it as a spectrum. One end of the spectrum is sattva, one end of the spectrum is tamas. The middle is rajas. So when on the spectrum you're at 0, it's tamas. 30, it's shudra. 0 is shudra. 30 is vaishya. What is 30? Still predominantly tamasic, but more rajas, but far away from sattva. It's not possible that a person is tamasic predominantly and has a lot of sattva also. It's not possible. Think of the spectrum. Now, if you're on the tamasic end of it, you're far from sattva. So tamas and sattva don't mix very easily. So you're still you're predominantly rajasic, but you're on the tamasic side of rajas. You're a little far away from sattva. That's when you're a vaishya. So you are rajasic in the sense that you are active, you are given to action, you are given to functioning in a certain way, planning, scheming, analyzing, assessing. But your motives, your purpose, your vision is still largely tamasic. It's limited. It's relatively selfish, or it's relatively contained. When a person is simply contained with their circle or their smaller circle. So a Vaishya is one who is doing their small business and just acting for their own sake, predominantly. It's not a criticism, it's only an assessment of where the person's mental capacities lie. Tomorrow, with growth, a person can grow into a broader vision, right? No doubt about it. Then comes a Kshatriya. Kshatriya is further on the spectrum of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, where they're still on the predominantly Rajasic side. They are maybe at 60%, 65%. They're still predominantly Rajasic, but closer to the Sattva. So there's more Sattva and less Tamas. Such people are very passionate, eager. They're still active. They perform a lot of action. They're still affected by victory and loss, just as a Vaishya is affected by profit and loss. But they have a bigger vision, they have a bigger purpose, they have dedicated themselves to a higher cause. That's the Sattva element which is influencing their action. So that's a Kshatriya. Such a person is designed to be a leader. Such a person is designed to be a given responsibilities. Such a person is designed to be in the political class or the military class of people who are playing this important roles in society, right? Who are dedicating their time and effort and actions to preserve and help society flourish, help the community flourish. And when you grow further, when you become predominantly sattvic, when you become poised, mature, you're a Brahmana. Brahmana means Brihat Manaha. That's the root of Brahmana. Brihat means to expand. Manaha means mind. One with an expanded mind. One with the reservoir of wisdom. That's a Brahmana. As we said earlier also, Sattva doesn't come so easily. It's a old soul. A true Brahmana is an old soul. Generations and generations of knowledge and wisdom. And if you were to allow lifetimes of wisdom, if you were to allow reincarnation, lifetimes of wisdom fed into someone's constitution, that's what makes a Brahmana. It manifests as a clarity, as a maturity, as an objectivity, as a detachment. Rajas is attachment. Sattva is detachment. You're still functioning. You're not inactive, but you're detached. Free from the indifference of tamas and the attachment of rajas. Sattva. You're a Brahmana. But these gunas belong to gunas. That's what he's saying. For me, I explained this concept of gunas for the last 10 minutes because in verse number 28, he introduced this concept of gunas. Gunas belong to Prakriti. All actions are performed by gunas of Prakriti. The gunas belong to Prakriti, matter, nature. You are a combination of Prakriti and Purusha. You are a combination of spirit and matter. All the gunas, all the qualities with which you describe yourself, with which you identify yourself, with which you give a description of yourself, they all belong to Prakriti. The Purusha, the Atman, your real self, is Gunatita. So, first thing to learn is that the gunas are not, you are not your gunas. The gunas are yours. Why? Because they belong to your Prakriti. They belong to your body, not to you. Your body has gunas. They belong to your mind, not to you. Your mind has gunas. And you might find it difficult to digest right now because We have not learned to make the distinction between Prakriti and Purusha. We've not learned to make that separation. So 27 is a very advanced verse. Verse number 27 is a very advanced verse. He's just said it so casually. Action in all cases are performed by gunas of Prakriti, O Arjuna. But out of egoism, you think I am the doer. It's a lot packed into this verse. And he doesn't expect Arjuna to understand. He doesn't expect Arjuna to immediately get it. Right? We have the luxury of time, we're talking about it. So the reason, because we are spiritually nascent, because we are spiritually in kindergarten, we are more familiar with our gunas than our Purusha. Sort of egoism, that's ego. We are predisposed to be egoistic. We identify with our gunas and we feel I am the doer. But these gunas belong to Prakriti. Your body is tamasic, rajasic, sattvic. Your mind is tamasic, rajasic, sattvic. Your intellect is tamasic, rajasic, sattvic. Or some combination of that.
So, Ji, if you give me 1 minute, when you were talking about this, I was imagining aeroplane. This story of aeroplane, when it is standing on the airport, it is totally tamas. When it is on the runway, gearing up to go up, it is in a Rajasic state. When it has already taken off, it is in a Sattvic state. So it is in the air. Again, Rajasic energy is also required for running in the air also. But when it is already taken off, it is my imagination. I may be
No, that's a beautiful example. So sattva is almost effortless.
effortless. Then
Sattva,
it is effortlessly gliding in the air.
sattva manifests
So just
effortlessly.
my imagination was like that. I was thinking like that. Is it right or wrong? I don't know.
I will steal your example, sir. It's a very nice example. Next time I will use it. Next time I have to explain it. Sattva manifests as effortlessness. It's like a plane in the air. It appears it's not doing anything. But actually what? It's moving at 600, 700, 800,000 kilometers an hour.
So, yeah.
It appears effortless. A lot of work has gone into making it that effortless. But at the same time, it appears like it's doing nothing. It appears like a motionless plane.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sattva is very easily misunderstood for tamas. Tamas is very easily misunderstood for sattva. That's also another concept. As you study gunas, it's a very important concept. Tamas mimics sattva. And this is the problem with half the world. Those who don't have a deep understanding of something can easily misunderstand tamas as sattva. And misunderstand sattva as tamas. People often say, don't you care? You don't have any emotion? Just because a sattvic person appears balanced in a situation, people misunderstand it for not caring. And just because someone is able to remain dud and dull in a crisis, they'll say, oh my God, so wise. There's a fire, but you're standing. So unless you have a deep understanding, tamas can be misunderstood for sattva and sattva can be misunderstood for tamas. It's like a plane. A plane in the air is apparently motionless. A plane on the ground is motionless. They can be easily confused. So thank you for that example. Okay, but coming back, gunas belong to gunas. Gunas belong to Prakriti. Right? Gunas abide in Prakriti. And then he says in verse number 28, O Mahabaho, O mighty armed one with true insight into the distinction of gunas. What is the distinction of gunas? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. One who has a depth of that understanding. And actions, how they relate to action. All your actions are simply a manifestation of your gunas. As your gunas, so your actions. As your gunas, so your thoughts, so your emotions, so your actions. A tamasic thought will lead to a tamasic action. It's not possible for a tamasic thought to lead to a sattvic action. Interestingly, a sattvic thought may dissipate into a tamasic action. Happens all the time. Hmm? Every night we have a sattvic thought. I'm going to wake up early and have a wonderful day, and I'm going to organize these things, and I'm going to do this. Sattvic thought. Especially after listening to a inspiring lecture or something. We have a sattvic thought. By the time it comes to action, we dissipate. But nonetheless, it's all in the realm of gunas. Every action has a guna associated with it. So one who understands this is just a play of gunas, knowing that gunas abide in gunas, knowing that gunas abide in gunas. As your guna, so the environment you will be attracted to, so the environment you will be drawn to. Gunas as your qualities, as your senses, will be attracted to environments as objects similar to them. Birds of a feather flock together. A tamasic person will find refuge in a tamasic environment. A rajasic person will find refuge, familiarity, will be able to identify with a rajasic environment. A sattvic person will be able to identify with a sattvic environment. You don't have to change anyone. You just have to watch it, be an observer of it. Don't try to force anyone to be different from what they are. People have their own path of growth, change. If at best you are called to participate in their growth, facilitate it. If at best, be a facilitator, if asked to be so. But you don't pull someone out of their path, and you can't force them to be different from what they are. So it's very important in any relationship. In any relationship, you must assess the other person. And now you have a vocabulary to assess. Gunas are a vocabulary to assess. That's what it is, right? In fact, if you last till chapter 18, and chapter 3, move slowly. If you last till chapter 18, especially chapter 17 and 18, we'll learn a lot about gunas, because this is practical Vedanta, right? He'll give all the knowledge, and ultimately he'll say, okay, this is very important to know. Please make sure before you go home. I don't know if you've understood anything, Arjuna, but make sure you listen to this. In chapter 18, he'll say, and he'll give a whole elaboration on gunas. The kind of actions you perform, the kind of thoughts you have, the kind of steadiness you have, the kind of happiness you seek, the kind of actor you are, what kind of consistency you have, what kind of food you're attracted to. All of these distinction based on the gunas. So it's a very important vocabulary we have to assess oneself, self-analysis, and assess others. And you can't force someone to be other than their gunas. If you try to bring a rajasic person to a sattvic environment, they might oblige you. In their mind, they're thinking, oh, what a boring place here. Rajas finds sattva very boring. Rajas needs excitement. Tamas finds sattva very foolish. Wasting your time. Sattva finds tamas very meaningless. I can't believe. Sattva finds rajas as silliness. So gunas abide in gunas. But the truth also is that the more sattvic you are, the more versatile you become. Why? Because you are independent of your environment. The more sattvic you are, the more self-sufficient you are, the more resilient you are. So you're actually self-sufficient. You don't need others around you to be a certain way. So that's also true. A sattvic person can function in any environment to whatever extent. That's why they say a true Vedantin can be at ease whether in South India or southern Texas. My guru used to say, suppose I take you to Texas, and I don't know if you've been to Texas, but anywhere in, very American, I went to Arizona once. I still remember when I was living in the US. I went to Arizona. Oh my God, it's its own culture. And I still remember we walked into a bar, a karaoke bar, in rural Arizona. I can't explain it honestly. It won't make sense. But it's its own environment. It was its own culture. Very country. Compare that to South India, especially as a. My mother sometimes makes fun of me. I'm South Indian now, especially because my wife is also half South Indian. So, but from a third person, coming from a third culture, it's totally different. I found comfort in it, back in the day when I used to travel to Chennai for Swamiji's lectures and everything. It's easy to adapt to some extent, but it's very different. Where is southern Texas and where is South India? But a Sattvic person is one who's able to adapt. The extent to which you're Sattvic, you're able to adapt. So gunas abide in gunas. One who has this wisdom, who has this insight into the gunas, he is detached. He is not attached. So, in any relationship, you must assess the other person. The extent to which you are assessing, to that extent you will be objective, to that extent you'll be detached. If you expect the world to be different from what it is your foolishness, nothing else. If you expect someone to function different from what their gunas are, the joke's on you. But they don't do what they're supposed to do. If people did what they're supposed to do, then there'd be no need for a Bhagavad Gita. People function according to their gunas, not according to their duties. That's the whole reason. That's the whole reason you need a Bhagavad Gita. Otherwise, if everyone was in Satyug, you don't need the Bhagavad Gita. The value and the worth and the need for a Bhagavad Gita is in Kali Yuga, not in Satyug. So, O Mahabaho, one who has this insight into the gunas, into the play of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, knowing how they function, knowing their limitations, knowing their qualities, such a person is wise. Such a person is not attached. Verse number 29.
Saji, when you were saying this, when we were in the college, in the chemistry experiment, we were getting those chemicals called analytical reagents, which were standard reagents to test. Actually, Gita, after reading Gita, I am feeling that we have got analytic reagents with which we can test whether we are in the right path or a wrong path. So it is a chemistry lab only. The psychologically, I am saying.
Yeah.
That after. No, my imagination was like that. It is an analytical reagent, standard things Bhagavan Krishna is telling in every shloka. Then we compare with that. Oh my God, what we are doing, what we understand, is totally different.
Hanji, Mona ji, you had a question? I think I saw your hand. You're on mute if you're saying something.
Sir, I want to understand the difference between Prakriti and Pravritti.
Pravritrim cha nivritrim cha.
Because
how did you come up
everywhere
with this
it's
question?
saying it's inherent nature. At times I feel inherent nature is also the pravritti of that person. But here it says actions arise from individuals' inherent nature. And then it says that the source of everything is called vasana. Your innate aptitude, urges which comprise of the individual's nature is called vasana. This is verse 27, sir.
No, I'm just curious where you came up with the word pravritti.
Sir, I don't know, sir, my mom uses it quite often on me. So I get a little confused.
In fact, it also appears in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm just curious because it's not here. It actually comes in chapter number 17 or 18. I think it is 18. 18. definitely. When he's
Okay, so I
talking,
can save it for that chapter. No worries,
he's
sir.
talking about a sattvic intellect, he uses this phrase, pravrittim cha nivrittim cha. A sattvic intellect is one who understands pravritti and nivritti. But in that context, pravritti means what should be done, what should be engaged in, and nivritti means what should not be engaged in. So pravritti means what you engage in. What you
जैसे सर आई कैन गिव यू एन एग्जांपल शी ट्राई टू एक्सप्लेन मी शी सेड जैसे शेर है उसकी प्रवृत्ति है खाना तुम उसके सामने खड़े होगे वो तुम्हें खाएगा ही
so शेर की प्रवृत्ति, what she means by that is a person based on their gunas automatically engages in a certain kind of activity, right? So naturally people have an orientation for what is pravritti and nivritti based on their gunas. 99% of beings, a sher is one without a buddhi, means they don't have a capacity to choose outside their nature. So जो उसकी प्रवृत्ति है वो वही करेगा. And in the context of the sher, we say based on their nature they will be engaged in a pravritti, in a certain kind of action. So जो प्रवृत्ति है वो भी गुणों से आती है, वो उसके प्रकृति से आती है.
एक नेचर होता है और एक आदत होती है. So प्रकृति is nature and प्रवृत्ति is your आदत.
करेक्ट, यू कैन से प्रवृत्ति एक आदत हो गई, या फिर एक यू नो इन इंग्लिश यू वुड से व्हाट यू आर प्रीडिस्पोज्ड टू डू, व्हाट यू नेचुरली डू, राइट? The what sets apart a human being from a lion is their capacity to choose. Now it's a different thing that 99% of people choose not to exercise their buddhi, right? So it's also important to understand what is a person's pravritti. When you're assessing someone, when you're making an assessment of someone, of their gunas, based on that you will understand what is their pravritti. Means how will they function in a certain environment, how will they function in a certain situation. An emotional person will be emotional in an environment, right? So you have to be a little careful, huh? क्या बोलो क्या ना बोलो, they're not that mature, right? But a sattvic person will have a very different pravritti. A sattvic person will be a lot more versatile. A sattvic person will be, it's much more easier to engage with them, right? So pravritti means, I think, was it Rimaji? I thought I heard that voice. No.
Yes, sir. Same thing.
Oh, Rimaji, I'm hearing your voice after a long time, so but I thought I recognized.
Okay.
So pravritti means आपकी जो आदत है, what based on your प्रकृति आप कैसे कर्म करोगे, that is pravritti, right? But so pravritti comes from prakriti. A person's pravritti, or what they tend to do, how they tend to function, you can think of it as this, how you tend to function is based on prakriti, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, Balaji.
This is relevant to the discussion you said about South India versus, I will take it as Manhattan. And now I remember one incident that has happened in Swami Prabhupada. He was in US trying to preach the Krishna consciousness, and some religious people, other religious people, I don't want to name them, they want to put him into a trap, and they took him, they gave an address where they said a lot of people who are interested, and basically they are hippies. Now, most of you know that hippies are the people who live the life they want without any drugs and other things, smoking, drugs and other things. And it so happened that he went there and he started seeing all the people, and immediately he told them, you people understand what is the freedom without a dress. Now I have come here to teach you what is the freedom you are going to have without your mind and intellect. Would you be interested in that? And every one of them have said yes. And most of his senior disciples are from that group. Thank you.
Yeah, no, indeed. And Swamiji always used to say that if you're rebellious, if you're little, you're more suited to Vedanta. Huh? So no doubt, a lot of people who have been on that journey of almost a recklessness, That's the hippie. That's the term given. Hippie. If many of you knew me in my college days, you'd call me a hippie. Huh? If many of you know me now, you'll call me hippie. Uh, so yeah, you have to be a little. You have to have a flavor for life. Then you'll automatically be funnily you'll be more oriented to Vedanta. Okay. Any other questions? I don't want to take another verse because we're already out of time. Yeah, Snigdha.
So I have two questions. I'll make it quick. So the first one is, you mentioned that the gunas are associated with Prakriti, so the physical body, and not the Atma or the soul, right? But so I wanted to know whether with this slot and body allotment system, can it ever happen that a sattvic soul is is ends up residing in a tamasic or a rajasic body? So what would that combination lead to? Would this person advance quickly in their spiritual journey, or how would it work?
See, when we say Prakriti, we don't mean just physical body. Prakriti is the sum total of your body. Your body includes your physical body and your non-physical body. And your non-physical body is essentially your thoughts, your emotions, your ideas, right? And which come from a causal body, which come from a jada, which come from a vasana. So Prakriti is a collective. Or rather, from Prakriti comes, your subtle and your gross bodies. So also, when you use this term soul, people throw around this word soul, and because of so it's very important to step back and ask, what do you mean by soul? Right? If by soul you mean spirit, then the soul is gunatita. Soul has no gunas. But if by soul you mean causal body, if by soul you mean the inner being residing in the body, right? The subtle body, then yes, a soul has a guna, right? So what do you mean by soul is very important. And generally 99% of times when people use the word soul, what they imply is the causal or the subtle body, which resides in or which takes the form of a physical body. So your soul resides in this physical body, right? So yes, a causal body no doubt has a certain guna, and it's unlikely that the guna of your inner body will be different from the guna of your outer body, because your outer body is a manifestation of the inner.
Fair enough.
Right? The way in which your thoughts are, the way in which your ideas are, the way in which your emotions are, so too will your body be like that. Sure, the percolation into the manifestation of that might take some time. It takes time for seasons to change. Say for example, you've spent a year having a disciplined thought process that manifests as a fit body, that manifests as a relatively healthy body. But if you slip, internally you've already begun to slip, internally you've already developed tamas. You may still retain a sattvic body for some time, but that effect of that tamas will eventually catch up in the manifestation of the physical. So the physical is a direct result of the non-physical, right? It may take time to manifest, it may take time to change, right? So your physical is actually mirroring or reflecting a past thought, right? Something that you have invested in the past. Your physical is a manifestation of that, but what you invest in today will result in the manifestation of tomorrow. They're not unrelated. It's not possible to be unrelated, if that's the question.
Thank you. And my second question quickly was that while we were discussing gunas, you mentioned that tamasic is ignorance, it's arrogance. and Satvik is on the other end of the spectrum. And then we also imagined it using the, let's say, the number line. So 0 and Satvik would be a higher number perhaps. So how do we not inherently associate a negative value with a lower guna
Yeah.
and a positive value with a higher guna?
No, see, in that sense, of course, objectively speaking, sattva is better than tamas, if that's your question.
Yeah.
Huh? Objectively speaking, sattva is better than tamas. But when we say that, it's not negative, we only mean to say that everyone is a combination of all three. There's no point in you calling out another person's tamas, because you also have some amount of tamas in you, right? And what you're seeing is only a part of them. When you see a person holistically, you'll see that even a tamasic person has a lot of sattva in them. So everybody is a combination of all three. But no doubt, objectively speaking, sattva is better than rajas, rajas is better than tamas. No doubt about it, right? If we have to sort of rate the gunas. What's also important to understand is that everyone is in a path of evolution. And in different fields at different stages of life, it's natural to be in a tamasic state in the beginning. What matters more than what your current state is the direction you're taking. Do you have your shutters open? Do you have a willingness to learn and grow? Chances are you'll grow very fast if you have that attitude. But if you develop an arrogance, chances are you might even devolve from where you are. So it's not so much what you are today, but what direction you're taking, right? And if you have the willingness to learn and grow, that's all that matters. So in that sense, we say don't be judgmental or don't draw conclusions, right? Don't judge a book by its cover, etc., etc. Because everybody is a comprehensive, it's a combination. And the deeper you understand a person, first of all, the deeper you understand yourself, you will realize that बुरा जो देखन मैं चला बुरा ना मिलिया कोई जो मुख देखा अपना मुझसा बुरा ना कोई, right? Sant Kabir said that, famous words.
Can you say that in English, sir?
When I tried to find fault in others, I couldn't find, any. The more I looked within, the more I saw into myself, I found the biggest faults within. So when you truly self-assess, when you're truly self-critical, you'll find that there's so much of things to improve in yourself. Everybody is an admixture, right? So through self-analysis, in fact, you gain an empathy for others. You gain a capacity to relate to them because you understand you are in the same boat somewhere or the other. Anji, Dr. Saab.
ये जो आपका रिटन में है कि तामसिक is inactive, राजसिक is active and सात्विक is trans-active. तो ये trans-active का interpretation.
ट्रांस-एक्टिव, जैसे ओम जी ने वो एग्जांपल दिया कि प्लेन की तरह है. एक्शन ऑटोमेटिकली, मतलब इट्स ऑलमोस्ट सीमिंग लाइक इट्स ऑटोमेटिक, मतलब कुछ करना ही नहीं पड़ रहा है बट हो रहा है.
ओके, तो
that's ultra efficiency, you can say. That's almost a smoothness of function, you can say, when you attain a sattvic state. रजस बहुत मेहनत करनी पड़ती है. रजस में बहुत शोर हल्ला ड्रामा होता है.
तो आप ये रिलायंस और अडामी वालों को किस कैटेगरी में लाओगे? राजसिक?
देखिए, it's very difficult to put people in categories, but again, if you have to have a quick assessment, because see, it's very easy, and it's we almost, anyone who comes into the limelight, we want to make them the punching bags. To have gotten where they have gotten, it has taken tremendous amount of effort.
Yeah.
And to have that vision, अरे पैसे कितनों के पास आता है, उस पैसे से आप करते क्या हो? There's a beautiful poem by Rudyard Kipling. If you can take a heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose it all and something and never breathe the word about your loss means that risk taking appetite. So if you listen to any of these one or two good podcasts about Adani, Ambani, and these families, particularly for example, there's a good podcast about Mr. Adani. I mean, within one generation to create such no matter how much he's got help from the government. See, I'm doing business also. Okay, we know if you want to get help from the government, you can get help from the government. It's very easy. But what do you do with that help? Do you have a larger vision of creating something bigger? And do you have so no doubt about it that these people where they are, they have reached with a bigger vision. So there is a lot of sattva in them. A lot of sattva.
Okay.
It couldn't happen without. But again, it's an admixture. Honestly, I'm not a person who knows them deeply to be able to even make a judgment. But from an outsider's perspective, to get where you get, it's not just luck. Secondly, to stay there is also, it also demonstrates what kind of gunas you have. The kind of decisions these people are making, the kind of decisions Mr. Adani is making in his own businesses, if you look into it, the way he's diversifying it, the way he's distributing it among the next generation, etc., etc. A lot of intelligent decisions are being made. So there's a lot of, objectivity. There's a lot of relative detachment. It's not 100% sattva, but it's definitely Kshatriya bhav, at least minimum. क्षत्रिय भाव है उसमें कि रजस है, predominant रजस है, but big influence of sattva. तामस बहुत कम है.
Combination of rajas and sattva.
They take decisions, they make important, they take they learn from their mistakes, they take risks, they are energetic, they are enthused, and that's why they are also now anyone can fall into a trap. Right? Maybe the next generation, I don't know, will fall into a trap, will become complacent, वो तो किसी के साथ भी हो सकता है. अडानी अंबानी के भी लेवल पे भी हो सकता है, और किसी even if you're a few hundred crores in net value, आपके साथ भी हो सकता है. So that complacency can creep into anyone. But to get where they have gotten, and it's my firm opinion, India needs 10 more of them.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Actually, कबीर का दोहा था, कबीरा आप ठगाइए और न ठगिए कोई, आप ठगे सुख उपजे और ठगे दुख होए. ये बिजनेस में अगर आप अप्लाई करें तो जो रिलायंस के जो चेयरमैन थे पहले वाले, जब धीरू भाई अंबानी, ही ऑलवेज थॉट कि भाई जो शेयर होल्डर है उसका फायदा होना चाहिए, मेरा फायदा कोई बात नहीं है. तो दिस हैज हेल्प्ड हिम अ लॉट. तो बिजनेस में ये फिलॉसफी बहुत काम आती है कि हाउ डू यू केयर, बिकॉज इट हैज ग्रोन लाइक गोल्ड से भी ज्यादा उसके शेयर जो है वो बड़े हैं. तो दैट इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट आल्सो.
करेक्ट, इंडीड.
बट क्षत्रिय भाव तो डेफिनेटली है, बिकॉज जो बिजनेसमैन होता है वो एक तरह से क्षत्रिय होता है, क्योंकि रिस्क टेकिंग फैक्टर इज वेरी बिग. रिस्क टेकिंग फैक्टर.
Okay, ji. Hari Om. I think Divya ji asked a question, but she's not here anymore. So we'll take it up next class. And we'll see you then. Thank you so much. Hari Om.
बहुत अच्छा रहा. Thank you.